There we go.
Hi, Miss Sheila. We're gonna start in probably about 5:33. We're just trying to get some extra time to some folks who are probably traveling through traffic. Are there K cups up there?
Pardon?
Hi, Miss Sheila. Sorry about that. We're working on some coffee here in the room. I'm so sorry, Miss Sheila. I was actually talking. uh, my name is Miss Martika Baker. I'm here with Opening Doors, where I've been for a very long time. um, I am going to pass the mic around the room. Just want you to introduce yourselves. Please tell us what organization you're with. I see some familiar faces, but Miss Sheila probably doesn't know everyone that's here today. So we want to just get an opportunity to know one another because you're going to be volunteering with each other for this point in time count, which is the training we're going to be going over. And you're probably going to run into each other a few times. So I'm just going to pass the mic around the room, and then Miss Sheila will have you introduce yourself very last.
Okay.
Hi, it's Savannah from Family Endeavors. How are you, Miss Sheila?
Hey, Savannah.
It's good to see you.
You too. Well, I don't see you, but yeah, you too.
Yeah. I'm a employment specialist case manager at Family Endeavors. We've just started the HVRP program in October, so just now starting to open cases within the last couple months.
Hey, I'm Nathan, and I'm just here volunteering, not with an organization.
I'm Delaney, and I'm the same. I'm just here because I want to be here.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm with the Overflow Health Alliance. I am a secretary, and yeah, I would love to be here. Thank you.
Hey, Miss Sheila, it's you.
I'm Sheila. I am with 90 Works. I work with the suicide prevention program at 90 Works.
It's great to have you here, Miss Sheila.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're going to be going over today is the brick and mortar training for point in time count. You are here likely because you completed a job form, and within the job form, it told you that you had a training to come to here at Opening Doors and a date and time. So you're here with me this afternoon. This does look a little similar to the street outreach training. There's some elements that are a little bit different, but for the most part, very similar. With the brick and mortar training, what is going on is the count is going to happen the same day for the brick and mortar sites. It's going to be January 23rd through January 27th. So you have to remember those dates. The basics of this training is at the point in time count. Everyone in this room probably knows a little bit about it if you've done PIT in our community before, but it is a snapshot of homelessness, right? We're trying to capture client data and understand the characteristics of the people who we are serving in our communities in certain program types, right? So we're looking to count folks who are either in a unsheltered setting, so they're staying in a place that is usually not meant for human habitation, staying overnight in places where you normally would not sleep, and also folks who are in a sheltered setting. So a person in a sheltered setting could be in a emergency shelter or a transitional housing program or some other locations that I'm going to talk about later. So again, the point in time count is that census count, where we are counting on a single night in the last 10 nights of January, where people who are experiencing homelessness are sleeping, whether it's in a camp, which is an unsheltered setting, or some other sheltered setting. So the purpose of PIT, again, is for us to track that client level data. And it also helps us to understand what types of programs that we need to develop in our community and the needs of each individual, whether they are unsheltered or sheltered. It is important also for us to determine how can we develop some outreach activities in our community. So where do we need to go to engage with people? And it also helps us to understand how to develop our programs, how to change the policy of those programs to better serve people. Because sometimes we'll hear from the people who are on the streets, I never get a call back, right? Or I don't really know how to get engaged with people. So this year, a part of our survey is asking for not just the client's name, but also to get their contact information so we can try to have a way to get back in touch with them. So why do we count? We're counting because it's actually a federal mandate. Uh, Congress has told the Department of Housing and Urban Development, you know what, we've made you responsible for giving out millions of homeless assistance grants to communities like ours. So there are 388 communities or continuum of care organizations in the nation. And so because we receive this funding in our community through like emergency solutions grant or COC programs, and also some other federal funders like through the VA and through HHS, Congress has said, okay, all you programs have to do PIT. You have to do this census count and you need to tell us what's happening. They don't receive client level data, they only receive aggregate data. So they get a count of who's experiencing homelessness in those demographics. So they like to understand how many racial groups or how many people in what racial group are experiencing homelessness, how many people are domestic violence, how many people are chronically homeless are experiencing homelessness. So they don't get to see the client level data. They just get to see counts reports or what we call aggregate data. So then we send them that report, and then at the end of the year, that helps them to determine their policies and programs. And then they decide to put out grants to say, okay, we're going to continue to fund particular grants, but we might establish newer grants for us to develop different types of programs to help people. And then collaborative applicants like opening doors. Each COC has a designated collaborative applicant that applies for those grants on behalf of our community. So who's count? We are going to be counting, and it doesn't really matter. The main focus is to understand not the characteristics of the individual or the family. It just has to be an individual or family, right? Doesn't matter their gender identity, sexual orientation, their marital status. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. What matters is, are they in a certain living situation, right? So if they're unsheltered, they have to be living in places where we normally won't stay overnight. So like a camp, under a bridge, overpass, park, um, outside on the streets, in the woods. If they're in sheltered settings, they have to be in emergency shelter, transitional housing, a hotel, motel paid for by an organization with state, federal, or local dollars or private donations, a domestic violence shelter, or a cold weather shelter. We can't count people who are in residential care or self-paying their hotel, and we can't count folks who are in sober living or halfway houses, or people who are housed in any other project type other than the ones that I named. Now, you're probably wondering, what about people in RVs and what do you call those, campers and sheds, right? People who are in those settings, they could be eligible to be counted in the census count, okay? So what you're just going to have to remember is to ask, do you consider yourself homeless, right? It's one of the questions that you should probably ask. Because a person might say, hey, I don't want to be counted as homeless just because I'm staying in an RV or a camper. And then maybe asking them some additional questions such as, do you have running water? Do you have running electricity? Do you have a way to dispose of waste? And then as they start thinking about it, they might, feel like, you know what, I probably am staying in somewhere that's inadequate. They might still say, hey, I don't want to be counted, and that's fine, right? We don't want to force someone. This is completely voluntary. Hopefully the relationship is strong enough and we have people who engage with them that are familiar with them and their situation. But again, it is based on, this is a voluntary survey. Mm-hmm. Right, because with street outreach, you can in street outreach too. If you come across someone that says, hey, I'm staying in a hotel and the hotel is paid for by a charity, because you're going to ask them, well, did you pay for the hotel? Did a family member pay for the hotel, or did you get assistance from an organization to pay for the hotel? If they tell you that an organization assisted them, then you count them. But if they self-paid their hotel, then you don't count them. And um, the survey tool is actually going to know whether they're accountable or not. Just based on how they answer the questions, sometimes the survey will completely shut off and just say, thank you so much for taking the survey, right? If they're not eligible, it's going to stop. That's a great question. So where do we count? Um, 2 locations, service-based sites. So with brick and mortar, a lot of the time you're going to go to what's called a service-based location. You're going to go to a place like Alfred Washburn Center, Bright Bridge Ministries, Waterfront Rescue Mission. You're going during their feeding times at these soup kitchens or day resource centers. While you're there, you may engage with people who are literally homeless, who are saying, hey, I'm staying in somewhere where we normally wouldn't sleep overnight. Or you're going to engage with people who are staying in emergency shelters or these other sheltered situations here. So when do we count? The census count is during a period of time. It's about 4 nights, well, 4 days, 4 days, 3 nights. We're going to be counting from January 23rd through January 27th, sun up to sundown. To count, what you have to remember is you're always going to be asking people, where did you sleep the night of January 22nd, 2025? Because that is the deemed night of pit for our community. So that is going to be a question that HUD is going to ask us, right? They're going to ask opening doors, hey, when was your night of pit for your community? We're going to say January 22nd, 2025. Then they're going to ask us, well, what days did you conduct your count? Then we have to tell them January 23rd to January 27th. One of the questions they ask us is, did you always refer back to the night of pit? You have to. That's the only way they count the survey. So how do we count? We're going to count using there's 3 methodology that we use, but the 2 that you're going to touch are going to be a online website application, or you're going to use a paper survey. So with the brick and mortar site, what happens is there's volunteers like you who are assigned to a team, right? You have a site lead. Your site lead is going to be an opening door staff member. Opening door staff members go to the brick and mortar locations to ensure to keep up with the coordination because of our relationship with the actual site host. So when we get there, what will happen is your site lead will need to engage with you. We would need to take you through a very short training of trauma-informed care and safety planning, just so you're familiar with what's happening at that brick and mortar site, because if an emergency happens at the brick and mortar site, you need to know what to do. And then what will happen is you're going to be released to do the surveys. If you have not had this training, or if you forget how to use the Hyperion app, which is that web-based application that you worked with last week, what's going to happen is they're going to give you a quick tutorial. Sign in with your site lead when you get to your location, because we want to keep, especially if you're affiliated with a college or a school or some sort, or your business is giving credit, because sometimes what will happen is they'll reach out to us to verify that you were actually where you said you were going to be. So then we'll be able to actually give them that list, and so that they can get credit for clinical hours or continuing education hours, things of that nature. So for volunteering, you may have various roles because you're going to be in teams of 2 or 3. There might be one that's giving the survey via paper or the web-based application, and there may be someone that's giving the care bag to back your sits, pretty much, right? There are going to be folks who are going to be helping the site lead, because the site lead is going to need to keep things organized. And there might be instances where we might say, hey, can you go over to that side of the brick and mortar site and just wave people over to us and just tell them hey, we're doing a census count. If you stop by the table, you'll be able to take a quick survey, and you're going to get a care bag, and you're hearing about this wonderful event that's going to happen at the end of this week when we finish this survey, right? So there are going to be some people who are going to be kind of helping the site lead to get people corralled over to the survey site, because we could try to set up like a table or two within the facilities so that people know, hey, stop by that table or another table so that you can come and get counted. For the brick and mortar shifts are about 2 hours, 2 to 4 hours. We just ask that you show up at least 30 minutes early for that safety and trauma-informed harm reduction tutorial. And then make sure you come with a charged cell phone and bring a battery pack just in case. Try to bring maybe a protein bar or something in your pocket for a snack, because this could be a long shift for some folks, especially if you're coming from somewhere and then coming there. And you can definitely bring you some water if you need to. And then once you're done with your census, your work, basically if you use the survey tool, the paper survey tool in any types of pens or what do you call them? Clipboards, just turn those in because we transferred them to the different sites. And I don't know if we're having volunteer badges this year, but we might. If you have a volunteer badge and you get one from Opening Doors, just make sure you turn it in as well. So let's get ready to survey. I know some of you folks have already tried out the Hyperion app. If you have not had an opportunity to do it, you're going to have it here shortly. Usually what we do is we pair up in teams of 2, and we basically go through pretending to be a client. Right now, our Hyperion app is in a testing phase, so you can take a look at it and see what the questions look like, and you can go through it so that you can ask questions right now in real time. You might not have asked questions last week that might come up right now. Go ahead and try to take it again while you're here so that we can answer those questions. So the steps for a point in time count, most times you're in pairs or groups of 3 or 4, especially if you're in outreach. When you're getting there, make sure your phone is ready to go. Be already logged in to the survey tool. Especially if you are brick and mortar, make sure that you have your location services on. If you're street outreach, make sure you have your location services off and use the zip code instead. Use the script that's within the tool. I know some folks deviate from it. Try not to as much as possible because it's kind of very simple for people to understand. Introduce yourself, get started on the survey tool. Remember, you're always trying to refer back to, not trying to, but you have to refer back to the night of PIT. There's 2 questions you're always going to ask. First is, have you had this survey before today? And where did you sleep on Wednesday night, January 22nd, 25? If the first answer to that question is no, and they tell you I slept in a shelter, then the survey is going to automatically move forward and let you survey that person. But if the person says, yes, I was surveyed before now, and I was in shelter, it's not going to let you complete the survey. If they said, no, I've not been surveyed, and then they say, I'm sleeping in the house of a friend, it's not going to let you survey. It's going to stop. So it has some logic built into this tool so you can't move forward with the survey if the person's not eligible. Again, 2 ways we're going to be collecting that data, through a mobile app and the survey form. And now let's test it out. Once you are in, you're going to see some demographics. The main thing to remember with the demographic information is they can skip over these questions. They can say, I prefer not to answer to all of these questions, right? Now that is pretty harmful for us because we need about 80% of the data for every human being that we survey to actually keep the survey. If we don't get about 80% of their information on the survey, we can't keep the survey and we have to set it to the side, which is unfortunate for us. We do have some features to try to extrapolate the data to try to predict who we may have seen in our community, but it's difficult when we don't have 80% of the information. Something that we might run into with this is a person might give us a date of birth and then give us the wrong age, right? Somebody might have been born in 1951 and they might forget, like, hey, I just aged a couple of months ago, and they might give you the wrong actual age number. And so basically just record what they say. We'll try to correct it on the back end because our system can like identify flags things that are illogical. right? If a client is surveyed more than once accidentally, or they try to switch up information, this is if they tell us, "Hey, my name is James Smith on over here," and they tell us their name is Jim Smith over here, but the information kind of aligns. The information looks very similar. The system's going to flag it, and it's going to tell us, "Hey, yeah, it's yeah, it's gonna flag it and say, "Hey, this might be a duplicate." And so we just click on the duplicate record, it pulls in the other one that looks like it, and then we just cross-reference everything to make sure that it's which one of them is legitimate, or are they both legitimate. Um, we use this paper survey that we're gonna have, and I wish I had one available right now. It's probably still being tweaked by our HMIS department. It looks mirrored to the Hyperion app. All the questions that are on the Hyperion app that you're going to work with today are on the paper survey. It's just a one-pager front and back, and it has a section on there for if they have family members, children, or partner, significant other, spouse. You can put their information on the household section. We ask the same questions for the household members that we ask for the head of household, where we complete the main survey on. So it can be a little bit more than 5 to 10 minutes to complete the survey when you have households with 2 or more people in there. So this is a sample of the script. As you can see here, this is what it was very similar last year. Just we did take out of the survey tool where it used to say, "Hi, my name is," and used to say your name. We took that out so people wouldn't accidentally say your name. That was always so funny. The people that we surveyed got a kick out of it. He's always laugh. Um, so let's practice. Now, this is an opportunity for you to go in. You're going to go to Safari or Chrome or Mozilla or whatever web browser that you use, and you type in this information here. You might want to do this before the actual count. And the reasoning is you want your phone to start recognizing that you're going to be going to this website. You also want it to be familiar with the code, because the code, I don't think it's going to change before. Oh, wait, it went forward again. I'm so sorry. I don't think the code is going to change again before we actually perform the census. It's just going to be switched from training mode to live. It is case sensitive. So make sure that you type the code as case sensitive. And if it doesn't work, it just pitcounter.com, add www. There are some HTTPs that require for you to keep that www. It just happens to be the way that the website is registered their domain. All right, everybody in? We're turning the location on. So for brick and mortar, we turn the location on. For street outreach, location off, and use the zip code or nearby nonprofit address. Oh, okay. What's that say? Can I see? That is a cool phone. Looks like we don't have permission to have it anymore. Okay, so this is the Android. All right, if you go to your settings for Android, and then you're going to go to your location settings here. There you go. It's not an app, it's going to be a web browser. So what's your web browser? Was it Chrome? Was it Google? Edge, it's Microsoft Edge. Interesting. Yours might be off indefinitely. I'm gonna have to get somebody that has an Android. Can you go to Edge for me? There we go. Love it. That is how you do it. Edge is Internet Explorer now. I don't know why he didn't just use that. So it says what you're going to do is go to your browser's toolbar, click Tool Settings, and then Internet Options. So you're going to go back to Edge. There you go. No, that's something different. Hmm. Definitely not tracking. You got tracking prevention on. That's something completely different. I'm going to have to get you to work with our IT person who has an Android. I don't know much about Androids. I do apologize. I need to sharpen my skills in that area. Yeah. So with the brick and mortar, we're going to have a lot of materials for you. We're going to have clipboards and pens, and the care bags are going to be there. We ask you to bring your portable charger, your cell phone, your water thermos, and a personal snack if you need it. When you're there, you're going to be working with the guests. If you've been going through that Hyperion app, as you can see there, what you're gonna see is survey that scripts in there. You're gonna see what I'm talking about, the client having the ability to say, I prefer not to answer, right? Um, there is a way for you to add in some identifying factors. So let's say if it's a very common name like James Smith, should be a box that's there for you to give us some additional details. So if it's James Smith that has a tattoo, you could tell us it's James Smith that has the eagle tattoo, or James Smith that also goes by Jim Bob, right? Whatever that type of information is to help us deduplicate even further. Um, Again, I went over the date of birth and the age. So just know our folks always, sometimes, I shouldn't say always, our folks sometimes kind of forget that they've been in this experience for a while. And so they might mix up their date of birth or their age, and we'll do the very best that we can to deduplicate. The social security number, um, it's not mandatory, okay? Again, the client can say, I prefer not to answer. The individual can say, I'm only willing to give 6 digits or 4 digits. That's fine. They are not forced to give their social security number. When folks are getting ready to answer some of those sensitive questions, because some of the questions that we ask are very sensitive in nature, you can lean in, right? You can just say, hey, I'm actually going to start going over some sensitive questions. I'm going to just turn my cell phone to face you, so that the individual can see the questions for themselves and they could just answer yes or no, especially for people who, not to give their positive status out loud, right? Or for people who have certain disabling conditions they just want to keep private. You don't have to say those out loud. You could just tell them like, hey, I'm going to turn my cell phone to face you. And if you can just say yes or no to these questions. Or they can just say, hey, I prefer not to answer, and then you can move on, right? um, okay. 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 Yeah, yeah, definitely. Right. So the question is, in one of the fields, there's the asking what is your gender, and one of the answer responses is a culturally specific identity. An example of that is some people in the Native American community may go by Two Spirit, right? So they might have a culturally specific identity, especially like people who belong to cultures I've seen this in are usually Native American, American Indian, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander. I've also seen it with people who originate from the Philippines, has certain culturally specific ways that they perceive gender identity. Like they don't go by she or he, which is uniquely so. So that's just some of the cultures that I have had that experience with. Great question. And that's so unique, right? Just like how cultures have those nuances within there. And I was so surprised whenever I spoke to a friend who told me, when I grew up, we didn't have that. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. Very surprised. Care bags. The care bags that you're going to be giving to people after they complete their survey has a lot of goodies in there, and they have a resource list, and they may have information from other organizations within them. Actually, right behind you, we have our station set up for the volunteers for this Friday that are going to be coming to do the Care Bag stuffing party. So all the donations that are behind this partition are everything that's going to go inside of the care bags, and we have more that are on the way. We just got to go pick them up. And basically, within this care bag, there's also a very important item, and I wish I had it with me. I don't know if Miss Serene's here and can run it down to me, but there's going to be a pit wristband that says I count. It is a purple wristband. It says I count on it, and it's going to have a white tag that's wrapped around it as well. That is going to be a person's round trip bus ticket on ECAT, where they're going to take a certain route to get from their tent to the Homeless Real Connect event back to where they're sleeping overnight. So is that round trip ticket is worth one free ride, and it transfers. So if a person has to, transfer on the route to get to the Homeless Connect event, they will be able to do so. They're in the ECAT drivers are going to recognize it. With this wristband, there is a script built onto the little ECAT pass, and basically it is for them to get into the event, which is the Escambia County Real Change U Count event. It is on Monday, January 27th. It's from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. And so we're just asking if you're a vendor or you're wanting to be a vendor, make sure you get connected with Miss Elizabeth as soon as possible, because she might be running out of spots as we're getting close. And then if you have people who you want to come to this event, like they're unsheltered or they're in a sheltered situation and you're planning on counting them, make sure that you tell them, hey, it's at Brownsville, what date and the time. I don't know how the security is going to work this year, because we had hyper security last year because we were at Bay Center. This time at Brownsville, I don't think it's going to be as hectic as it was last year. But folks are going to have to check in, even like the people who've been surveyed already. We're going to try to take the opportunity to make it a very last stop that we try to make sure that we get them surveyed, or if we're missing any important information that can help us keep the survey, we're going to try one last time to get them to give us that piece of information. And if they don't, we're just going to let them go. Well, go on through. Have a great time. Enjoy yourself. And they're going to get a hot meal while they're there, or a sack lunch. I don't know which one yet. Um, I'm so sorry. Mhm. It is. It is. Yes. So tips. You're going to be at a brick and mortar location, right? So with the brick and mortar location, the safety that is there is a little bit probably higher than what you'll experience when you go out into a wooded area, right? That is covered. But you should still always watch yourselves, because there are a lot of trip hazards while you're there, right? So I can tell you I had an accident one year at one of the sites, and it was not a pretty good spiel. I didn't feel good. Um, but just watch where you're stepping, make sure you're wearing appropriate attire. Some of the etiquette just when you're engaging with people. Now, there might be people who are way more experienced than me when going out into these settings, right? With harm reduction and things of that nature. But uh, these are just tips that I abide by whenever I go out as someone that has done it before. Show respect, especially for physical space. Make sure that you're asking permission before you sit. Like when you're at Alfred, Washburn, Waterfront, Brightbridge, all of these places you can actually sit with the guests, right? So when you're at these locations, ask permission to sit down with them because the very first thing why they even came there was I need to check my mail. I need to do my laundry. Need to get my tickets so I can go get my laundry done, or get my tickets so I can go over here and pick up a new jacket, or go over here and get my coffee and my hot breakfast. And then I'll talk to you, right? Sometimes they are not going to want to talk to you right initially because we're there when doors open. And so this is part of the spiel that we even give whenever you first get there. Don't get discouraged because they don't want to talk to you at first. They're there for a goal. This is their job for the day, is to take care of their basic needs first, right? And so once they are finished taking care of their basic needs, yeah, they're like us. They're like, I just woke up. I need a Joe. So once they are finished, then they'll come talk to us, right? So be kind. So that's part of it, just being aware of this. You're able to say, put yourself in their shoes and say, okay, let me treat you how I want to be treated when I just woke up like this, right? And treat people with dignity and respect. You're going to acknowledge them. There's nothing more that they feel is when you ask them, what is your preferred name, or what should I call you, right? They really enjoy when you try to build a rapport with them and try to be relatable, right? Be aware of your surroundings. Make sure you don't withhold any of these critical items that we're trying to give them. If they say, I don't want to be surveyed, I don't want to talk to you, um, still say, okay, well, you know what? We have this care bag. I want to give it to you, but I want to tell you about something that's inside of it. Reach into the care bag, take the wristband in the bus ticket pass out and show it to them. Put it on their wrist if you can, or encourage them. If you think you're going to lose it, put it back in your bag, but keep an eye on your bag. Don't lose this bag. Even if they lose their bag, tell them to come. Tell them to come. We can check them on the list. We'll survey them while they're there. I don't want anyone to lose out on the opportunity of this Homeless Connect Day, right? Because it's such a wonderful event to get people connected to services. So even if they lose it, tell them to come if they can get there. So what not to do? Obviously, we're not touching folks without any permission. We're not proselytizing. We're not being discourteous. We're not assuming anything about the people that we're surveying. We're not talking bad about their dog if they have their dog with them, right? Because the dog is an extension of them. He or she is there to protect their human. So we're not going to talk bad about them. Don't give any money or any non-essential items. Anything that's not a part of the event in the care bag, don't give it to them during this setting. You have an opportunity to do that during the vendor table session at the UCount event if you go. If you would like to come to the UCount, you're not connected to an organization, try to sign up to volunteer for UCount so you can come into the event and see what it's like for yourself, if you can. Talk to Miss Reen. This is not a counseling because we do need volunteers for those for that event. This is not a counseling session. Please remember your goal is to try to obtain as much information during the census survey for each participant. So safety tips. Again, back your partner sits at all times. Be aware of your exit routes, even at the brick and mortar locations, which is why you show up early because you need to hear about the safety plan, right? Trust your judgment. If it feels unsafe, make sure that you get out of that situation and follow the safety plan to a T. Be respectful of space, be respectful of choice, because the individual that you're serving or surveying, they have a choice whether they answer these questions or not. Remember, they have their own integrity, their own dignity, and they have a personal choice. It's completely voluntary. If they say, I don't want to participate, move on, give them the care bag, thank them for their time, tell them about the Homeless UCount event, tell them about the wristband, tell them how they're going to get there, and then just say, please try to get there, and thank you so much. Have a great day. Again, with the pets, with our companion animals, this year, guess what, y'all? We actually got a donation of treats for dogs and cats. So the care bats are going to have dog treats and cat treats for our guests to give to their companion animals this year. So, um, if you engage with an owner with their companion animal, acknowledge the owner first, right? It's better to take care of the owner first. And then once you're getting through the survey, let them know, like, hey, can your dog have a treat? Because guess what? Inside of your care bag, there's a little gift for the pupper. And so that way, that's just that special touch for our guests and their important companions. If there might be a dog that could be a stray, especially if you're going into an encampment, right? So always try to look for the owner, right? If the dog seems, not to be happy to see you there, then back up out of there, right? Obviously, facing the dog and just backing up out of the situation. If you feel like you're a dog whisperer now, and you take it upon yourself to feed the dog the treat out of the care bag, it is on you because you did sign a hold harmless form. Okay, just want to say that. Um, if you that's your style, then okay. If you call 911 because of an emergency, especially if you're out at a brick and mortar site or if you're with your outreach team and y'all have gotten separated, hopefully that never happens. But if you do, just let your site lead know as soon as you can get to safety. If you've had to call 911, if you've had to leave because you started to feel sick, like COVID is out, flu is out, cold, the common cold is out right now, the RSV, whooping cough, everything is out right now, right? So if you end up not feeling well and you have to leave from that site, please call. Don't go to your site lead. Call your site lead from the car, okay? Because you don't want to pass your germs over to any of the other volunteers or the site lead or any of the guests that we're surveying. So if you start to feel icky, um, call us and say, hey, I can't show up. Pay attention to your health leading up to this event and 2 weeks after. Make sure you're self monitoring, check your temperature. If the whole rundown that we went through with COVID, you have chills, do you have a cough, do you have a runny nose, have you lost taste or smell? Checklist. Do that leading up to this event so you know whether you should be coming outdoors or not, right? I am asking that if you are sick, please do not come. Call us and say, hey, I have to cancel. Can you put another volunteer into my spot? All right. That's all. That's all we ask. Make sure that if you can, as much as possible, try to depend on your cellular device to do the survey rather than the paper survey, clipboards, and pens. Right? Why? Because you're taking germs off of one item and dispersing them everywhere else, right? So we just want to try to keep it down by using our cell phones because this is yours and you're the only person that's touching it for the most part. And then just make sure that you're paying attention to the Department of Health's website because they're always giving out tips about if there's any type of infectious diseases that have started to bloom that they're noticing. And so in our continuum, so you just want to make sure you're paying attention to that. So on Friday, we have Care Bag Stuffing Party. If you are a organization that's wanting your items to go in to the care bag, make sure that you have your care bag items to go into the care bag brought here to opening doors no later than the 16th of January. We do close at 5. If we have to stay late because you're coming in from work, just call Serena or myself or email us and like, hey, I'm running late and bringing some more donations. But try to reach out to us as soon as possible if you're going to do that. The pit census period, keep that in mind, January 23rd to the 27th. And then the Escambia County You Count Homeless Connect Day is January 27th, 2025 from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And we are hoping to see you there. Um, Again, my name is Martika Baker, and the way to reach out to me is that phone number or that email address right there. We are available to answer any of your questions, and so is Ms. Serene Pike. Because you're wanting to volunteer at UCount, please just make sure that you email or call Ms. Serene. She might have some time to talk to you today. I don't know. She is on campus. But this is the end of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions for me? Oh, okay. Would you like to show us? Involved. A member. Hmm. So on our website, we have this event, we have a community events page. We also have a page about like programs and what we do. So periodically throughout the year, we'll have events. So like usually in the summer months, we do what's called what's the name of that event? Hope Day. We do a Hope Day event. It's where we have vendors come in and I'm sorry. We have vendors come in again, and on that day, it's like client services on that day for about 27 to 30 vendors will come out, and it's like a pop-up U count. And we do it for like 4 hours. We've not had volunteers on that day, but I bet you Miss Serene probably wouldn't mind. Um, we periodically throughout the year, we might need volunteers to help us with like a donation closet, um, or an events closet, like to organize those areas. Um, we're starting to ramp up opportunities for volunteering because we're just restructuring our entire organization. So we have people who want to like learn the social service world and kind of like help us with um the front lobby, right? There might be opportunities like that in the future. I don't know what those are all going to be yet, but it's something that our interim executive director is probably has in the back of her mind about some planning, some volunteer opportunities and how to get those developed. Because we do interns, right? We do summer youth interns that come in here and they help us with a lot of things. And then we have like our pop-up events like the Hope Day and then the U Count event, which is our pit event. But if we think of anything and you're a member, it definitely will be announced. It'll go out via constant contact and it will also be on our website. There are other opportunities we're basically right now working on our charter, right? Our charter just got finished up, which basically just tells us how to operate our business, our COC. So from there, we are establishing a governance council. And so this council is going to be in charge of coming up with committees. And these committees are going to be a lot of volunteers working on things that we have to do as a community, right? So there's probably going to be a committee for point in time count planning. And so it's an opportunity to sign up to be a part of the coordination and logistics team for a point in time count. An opportunity to sign up to be a part of the selection committee. So then what that committee is for you to um, Opening Doors releases a request for proposals for eligible applicants to apply for a grant program. And then we need people to actually sit on the committee to evaluate the applications to select who's going to get those funds in our community. So there's different COCs have different committees, and the COC is what we are as a collective, all of the social service organizations that work together to represent people who are experiencing homelessness, right? Because we work with them, right? And then they get to be a part of the committee as well. People with lived experience get to sit on these committees and like they can lead maybe racial equity talks and equity other types of equity talks because it doesn't have to just be a racial equity. It can be any type of marginalized population that's having some type of social or civil justice issue. So they could just, I usually don't call it like some COCs call it a racial equity committee. I like to call our committee the equity and inclusivity committee because those are the folks that is what they are. The purpose of having people with lived experience is for them to come in and tell us, hey, your policy seems to be like completely 86ing this group of people or your policy could be, a really desensitive or, insensitive. And so maybe we can say this in a better way. So people with lived experience are great to have a part of this because they see things from a very simplistic mindset, but also a more humanistic mindset because they've lived it, right? And so they've been there. And so there's going to be lots of opportunities, especially in the next 12 calendar months with this new governance council, because mm, their next orders of business are going to be, development of committees and policies and all that type of stuff, strategic plans, all that. So now that you're a member, just make sure you're paying attention when the council comes out and they say, hey, we're now soliciting for participation on committees. You need to come to this meeting if you plan to be on this committee to do this work. And there's going to always be descriptions about what the committee does and what the time commitment is going to be like. Because we're actually working with technical assistance from our funders. So it's not like Opening Doors is coming up with it by themselves. We're actually working with a trained professional from the government to do this. So, yeah, it is. And I've known her for years. So our technical assistant I've known forever. So at least a large amount of time that I've been in social service world. So it's great to have actually have a relationship with the person who we're working with. But this is the gist of things. All right. You folks have a wonderful evening. I hope it's not too cold out there. And if it is, make sure y'all go home and have some hot chocolate. You probably don't want a Joe tonight if you're trying to go to sleep. Yes. Miss Sheila, if you stuck around with us long enough, thank you so much for being here this afternoon. Well, going
Yes,
into
thank
evening.
you.
You're welcome. I hope you
you.
have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.